Hello and welcome to a special edition of DTV India. Today we are very fortunate to have amongst us Mr. Pratip Kar. Hello sir.
Hello.
Mr. Pratip Kar is the former executive director of SEBI. He has been at the helm for 14 years and has seen a number of regulatory changes in the country. He is also a consultant to the World Bank and International Finance Corporation. Today he is here to share his views on the evolving role of the boards and its directors in the changing business environment. Thank you sir for speaking to us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
As you know, boards and directors form an integral part of the legal structure of any company. And sir, since you have been there at the helm since 1999 and 2000, since the time when SEBI introduced the Clause 49, you have seen a whole lot of regulatory changes in the country. So do you think over the years the role of the board and how the directors have functioned changed over the years?
The boards of companies have two basic roles. One is to direct and the other is to control. There has not been any change in these two basic roles. What has changed is the way the boards and the directors perform these roles. Any change or any evolutionary change usually happens due to exogenous factors in any system and endogenous factors. In the case of governance and board functioning, the exogenous factors are 4, 5 or 6. The globalization, global competitiveness, technology, speed of information flow, quality and quantity, right. That's one. Regulatory changes, pressures of regulatory change, and last one is, I think, is shareholder activism and expectations. As a result, 3 things have happened. One is the enhancement of the expectations of the shareholders. There's increased responsibilities of the boards and greater enhancement of liabilities of the directors. These 3 things have happened. Otherwise, the rules have not altered. It's like a game of cricket. For example, the game cricket is still played with 22 players, 6 wickets, 22 yards, a bat and a ball, but the format has undergone a change. From Test cricket, it has evolved to limited overs, from that to 2020. That has impacted the way the players play the ball or hit the bat, or the bowlers bowl. Third umpire has been added. You're not playing with flannels. You're using colored shirts, trousers, and colored balls. So there are a lot of change, but the structure is the same. The same thing has happened in the case of governance.
Sir, among the many external factors that you have mentioned the change in regulatory environment. So what's the impact of this change in regulatory environment in the way the board and the directors function?
I think the regulatory changes, the pressures from regulatory change is one of the strongest pressures on governance. Governance, as a rule, must come from within the company. For sustainable development, governance is a necessary condition that businesses must realize. But what the regulation does is to impose a framework within which the boards can function, within which the directors are supposed to function. For example, composition of the board, the structure of the board, the number of committees, how many meetings the committees must be had, or the number of meetings in the board, what should be contained in the meetings, how the minutes should be kept. All the structures come down from regulations, and regulations change over time. And therefore, the governance framework changes, and that impacts the functioning of the board and directors. It adds on to responsibilities and adds on to liabilities as well. So that is what regulatory changes impact. And I must make a mention that this is not without a cost. There's a cost added to all this, but all the cost helping the company function better, more improved way for greater shareholder benefit.
But don't you think that the board of directors now have to learn and get acquainted with new tools, techniques and topics to discharge their responsibilities more effectively and cope with this change?
Surely. I think board of directors cannot afford to be, at least independent directors cannot afford to be flies in the walls. And they have to know what their presence, what are they expected of them, because there's enormous increase in liabilities on them. That's very important to know that I am liable for certain things which can lead to imprisonment also. Therefore, that's one, fear. Other thing is, as an independent director, I'm talking about our independent directors only, independent director is not an ornamental position anymore, because I must help the company perform very well, and therefore I have to do my job well. In order to do my job well, I must understand what the job means, implies. I must know what the company manufactures, whether it's manufacturing safety pins or is it manufacturing chemicals. At least that I must know. And I must know the area expertise I have, and which I must bring out in my board discussions. For example, internal financial controls or risk management. It's not enough to say I don't understand this, because the Companies Act requires that boards must certify that they have evaluated the systems and they're working very well. Now, how the hell I do that if I don't know the system? So therefore, that's important. My knowing the system is not enough. The companies, management of the companies must help me understand that. So there must be a good interface between the management and the board. The stronger the interface, smoother it is, the better it is for the company and the board. Not only that's not enough. And not only interface with the management and the board, within the board of directors, I must be able to talk freely among my colleagues. So because that is what helps the collegial atmosphere in the board. And third thing is, I know everything, I know things. My colleagues know this, but I'm not allowed to voice my opinion in the board. Any dissension is cut out. So here comes the role of the board leadership or the chairman of the board. He must be able to tease out from me what is the best in me to contribute effectively for the company's benefit and the board's benefit, and also to understand that he must allow me to voice my opinion freely. That's one. Last thing is, I must understand the board of directors three things, that my performance must be evaluated now. Second thing is, I must do internal controls. I must do what it means by risk management, and lastly, what it means by related party transactions. That has been source of many corporate failures, so I must know what it means. These are the things I must know, besides being only tools and knowledge. These are areas I must focus on, especially with the Companies Act and its cross-49.
I also wanted to ask you, sir, if there is a change in the interface between the auditors and the audited companies in this new environment?
Quite a lot, for two reasons. Because the Companies Act places enormous responsibilities, new responsibilities on the auditors and also on the boards. For example, boards must be able to assess the auditor before it gives an audit assignment. Also, things which the auditor cannot do or can do, there are restrictions on that. Companies must understand those restrictions. So therefore, it's important to understand what the Companies Act wants the board to do, what the board can do, cannot do, what the board should do while it talks to the auditors. And we're all the auditors, close association with auditors in seeing the audit is done properly. That is important. So both from the auditor's point of view, enhanced responsibilities, and both from the board's point of view on what they need to do, what they can do, cannot do, understanding that is important. So that adds to the role of the board and the interface between the boards and directors and the auditors.
That was very insightful, Mr. Kar, and thanks so much for coming over to our show and giving our viewers the guidance on corporate governance. Thank you once again.
Thank you for inviting me.
Stay tuned for more such insights and perspectives from industry experts on DTV India.